Hey everyone, this video is a comparison between the 15 and the 17-inch versions of the new Asus TUF Gaming notebooks based on AMD 4000 hardware and NVIDIA GPUs. We're going to look at the main differences and the similarities between them, as well as explain to you what to expect from the multitude of available configurations, as we've reviewed both the Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7 versions of these laptops, and the entire range of graphics options from the GTX 1650 Ti up to the RTX 2060. First though, here's a quick look at the two models side by side. They share the same design lines and ergonomics, with the TUF A17 being a slightly oversized duplicate of the A15. It's about an inch wider, 2 inches longer and half of a pound heavier, or between 200 to 300 grams depending on the configuration. The larger footprint required to accommodate the 17-inch display also translates into a more spacious armrest and some extra interior space that could help with cooling the components. We'll get to that in a bit. Otherwise, the 15 and the 17-inch versions are identical and get the same keyboards, touchpads, IOs, and construction particularities. That means plastic is used for the main chassis and the inner deck on both of them, which feels somewhat cheap, but the laptops are still fairly sturdy and pass military reliability tests, much like the previous lineup of TUFs. For the exterior, Asus offers either a metallic grey variant with a simpler design, or a plastic black model, which is mostly reserved for the lower tier configurations. If possible, go with the grey version, it feels nicer and does a better job at hiding smudges. The lower tier GTX 1650 Ti models also get a redesigned internal layout and thermal module on both the 15 and the 17-inch versions, and that means they get fewer heat pipes and no hot air exhaust grill on the left edge like on the 1660 and the 2060 version. Instead, the entire cooling relies on the exhaust on the back edge. The I/O is mostly lined on the left edge on both the A15 and the A17, leaving the right side clutter-free. You get most of the required ports here with USB-A and USB-C, LAN, HDMI and a headphone jack, but still no card reader and of course no Thunderbolt 3 support or USB-C charging. The keyboards are also the same on both the 15 and the 17-inch laptops. The layout is okay with a full-size deck of main keys, but a smaller numpad section and small arrows. Both are fair typers, but the spongy feedback isn't one of my favorites, so I was only able to hit average speeds and accuracy even after punching thousands of words on these laptops. The keys are RGB backlit with a single zone and some basic effects included in the Aura software. You can also adjust the illumination on 3 different intensity levels and the LEDs get bright enough on max. For mouse, Asus went with an immovable touchpad and dedicated click buttons. It's a plastic surface and it's fairly small, but handles everyday use just fine, and those physical click buttons are nicer and smoother than you can normally get in this segment. This aside, Asus offers both the A15 and the A17 with either a 90 Wh battery or a different version with a 48 Wh battery plus a hard drive cage. And if that wasn't enough, some of the lower tier configuration also get a single M.2 storage slot, while the others get 2 M.2 slots. I know, this is confusing. That's why it's important to carefully look through the spec sheets when deciding on the unit you're planning to get. We've also summarized the differences for you here, just hit pause to figure things out. Right now, the RTX 2060 graphics chip is only reserved for the 15-inch model, while the A17 tops up at the GTX 1660 Ti configuration. However, the other specs are shared between the two. Asus also favors the 15-inch variant when it comes to the screen choices, with a 140Hz panel available for the A15 and only a 120Hz panel available for the A17. They're both Full HD and IPS-like, so not much in terms of brightness and colors. On the other hand, they're fairly uniform and don't show flickering or much light bleeding around the edges. Both these panels are supposed to excel in games, with 140 or 130Hz refresh rate and adaptive sync that eliminates tearing. But there's another side of the coin you should consider here, especially if you're planning to play fast-paced games. The response time on both of these isn't on par with the faster screens available on higher tier notebooks, so ghosting can be an issue in these titles. That aside, keep in mind that the base tier configurations might only be paired with a 60Hz screen in both cases, which are even slower, dimmer and overall lower quality than these high refresh options. They do help drive the price down for those base models, and it's up to you if the compromise is worth it. Okay, let's talk numbers now. We've tested 2 A15s and 1 A17 in these configurations illustrated here. They might not be the exact options available in your region, but will help you make a general idea of what to expect when mix and matching the 2 AMD CPU options with the 3 NVIDIA GPU variants. All the tested configurations get dual channel memory, which is a must as it impacts the performance in games and some benchmarks, as well as comparable mid-tier SSD storage. It's also important to add that all our tests are running on the turbo power profile available on all these laptops, which ramps up the CPU and overclocks the GPU in each case. With this in mind, we've tested the CPU's performance in a couple of tests and scenarios and gathered the results in here. The two Ryzen 7 models deliver outstanding multi-threaded performance, and the A17 variant slightly overtakes the A15 model in some of the demanding loads. That's mostly due to silicon lottery though, as the two implementations run at the same frequencies and temperatures on both laptops. The 6-core Ryzen 5 is also a highly competitive processor, outmatching even the better 6-core Intel i7 configurations in multi-threaded loads and only losing in some of the single-core tests. These TUF models are also capable of sustained performance in longer demanding chores, as illustrated by our Cinebench loop test. The performance remained consistent after 15 plus runs, which means the thermal and power design are adequate for these powerful AMD platforms. As always, more benchmarks and a more in-depth look at the performance is included in the written reviews on the site, and I've linked them for you in the description. As far as the graphics options go, you can only get an RTX 2060 90W GPU on the TUF A15, paired with a Ryzen 7 processor, while the GTX 1660 Ti and 1650 Ti versions are available on both frames. Our A17 gets this new 2020 NVIDIA 1650 Ti chip with GDDR6 memory, and you can see how it stacks against the higher tier options in this graphics test, part of the 3D Mark suit. We also run a couple of different games on these laptops, and here's what to expect. Yes, the GTX 1650 Ti won't be normally paired with a Ryzen 7 processor in most regions, but switching over to the Ryzen 5 shouldn't have a major impact in most of these modern titles, as they're not designed to scale on an 8-core processor in the first place. That RTX 2060 on the top tier A15 is roughly 10 to 15% faster than the GTX 1660 Ti on the mid-level A15, while the 1650 Ti trails both by a significant margin. It can still run most games well, but you'll have to cut on the details in most recent titles to keep the frame rates above 60. As far as thermals go, here's what we measured in terms of CPU and GPU temperatures in Far Cry 5 and Witcher 3. Sure, the A17 runs slightly cooler, but it's also the more basic thermal design and copes with a lower power GPU. It would have been interesting to compare the exact same Ryzen 7 and GTX 1660 Ti configurations of both the A15 and the A17 versions to see if there's any hope for improved temperatures in the larger chassis, but we didn't get those configurations for review. Still, as far as I can tell right now based on testing all these AMD 4000 platforms, I'd expect minimal differences between the 15 and the 17-inch models, since the chassis never gets hot on any of these implementations, not even on the top tier A15, and thus doesn't have an impact over the CPU and GPU temperatures. Repasting the components should help though, so buying from a third-party seller that offers this option is definitely not a bad idea. Of course, you can also do it yourselves, as long as you know what you're doing and don't mind waiting warranty. I should also add that the A15 runs a little bit quieter in this configuration than the tested A15 models. With games, the A15 stop at about 48 to 50 dB at head level, while the A17 ramps up to about 46 to 48 dB. But again, that doesn't tell us much since we're talking about different configurations. So overall, I'd expect similar noise levels on matching A15 and A17 versions. You'll also get similar runtimes on a charge as long as you're going to get the same battery option. Expect 3 to 5 hours of multitasking and 8 to 10 hours of video from the 90Wh battery, and 2 to 3 hours of multitasking and 4 to 5 hours of video from the 48Wh option. Okay, so we've touched most of the important aspects you need to be aware of when deciding between these two Asus TUF versions. In conclusion, the A15 has an edge in terms of configuration options as the only one to get the RTX 2060 GPU and a 140Hz screen, plus also has a price advantage over the A17. As of right now, the mid-tier Ryzen 7 GTX 1660 Ti model goes for $999 on the A15 and $1099 on the A17, both with 90Wh battery and the higher quality panels available in each case. That means you'd have to pay extra for the larger but slightly poorer screen on the A17 without getting much else in return. Sure, we haven't tested this exact same configuration, so we can't haste to any conclusions regarding any of the small differences in performance or thermals for the larger model, so you should look into other reviews as well. If the 17-inch models offer even marginal improvements in CPU and GPU temperatures with games and demanding loads, that could be another good reason for you to go with the A17s over the A15s. But all in all, I find the 15-inch TUF Gaming A15 to be the more compelling option between the two, and don't really see the point of paying extra for the A17 unless you absolutely want a 17-inch AMD powered laptop. Okay, this pretty much wraps up this video. Thanks for watching and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. I'd also love to hear what you think about these two notebooks and which one is your pick, so please leave your comments down below. Oh, and yeah, subscribe to get notified when we publish new content. This would greatly help our small channel. Catch you later.